Graham Lineham being arrested at Heathrow Airport, and the headline news generated everywhere across the nation, even across the big pond in America.
Nigel.cecil, calling things out as you like it, especially for his fair-minded friends.
Hello, Chakabatis. Welcome. Amongst some of our fair-minded and equitable friends, there will be those who've already spotted the opening caption to this video, which features Graham Lineham mentions freedom of expression and also safety and dignity at work. You'll be aware, therefore, that some of you have got in touch via our usual email address and brought these issues to our attention so we may endeavour to present them equally and fairly on your behalf in order to stimulate some discussion. Now, this particular topic, it probably goes without moi, Hilary, explaining any further, arises from Graham Lineham being arrested at Heathrow Airport, and the headline news generated everywhere across the nation, even across the big pond in America. So what's this got to do with you? Many of our fair-minded and equitable friends are members of Equity. Equity, the trade union for professional actors, variety entertainers and other creatives across the United Kingdom. When it comes to the arts, freedom of expression is so important. If you're not aware of things, over generations, years, the arts have always pushed boundaries. It was evident at the Edinburgh Fringe the other week, pushing boundaries, because that's what new ideas are all about. Some may find acceptance, some may fall on stony ground and do nothing. But surely it's worth exploring through creativity, through the arts, what everything is all about. Indeed, it's fair to say, in extreme situations when all of us are challenged, at grassroots level, the arts come into their own. Marginalised communities, communities under war, famine, all sorts of things, groups coming together, they use the arts to express themselves. It's true to say, therefore, equity attracts by its very nature those who are marginalised, who want a vehicle to express themselves, which is why equity has never judged talent. Talent is in the eye of the beholder. The audience decide if they like someone or not. The audience decide if they like the message. But of course, sometimes the law intervenes and says, well, we're not accepting that. But that's really the only boundary that perhaps should be pushed. Nothing else matters. It's freedom of expression that matters. Now, equity has taken a stance about transgender and the Supreme Court ruling, but that's up to the equity members and equity. Should equity have done that? But from our point of view, being equally unfair on behalf of everyone, the arts have always pushed boundaries. So some of you say there's cancel culture within equity, and if there is, it should be called out. But having said that, cancel culture, and thinking of those at the grassroots, may I digress a little bit and just explain where I'm coming from when it comes to freedom of expression, how it's so important that those who campaign don't realise in doing so, they may be marginalising those who shouldn't be marginalised. Years ago, back in the 70s, I was friends with someone, but then, as usually happens, work changes, you move house, and you lose touch. And it was some 25, 30 years later, I got a phone call. Hello, it's Keith here. May I come and meet you? Of course, where have you been? Oh, I'd love to know what you've been doing. We were pals. Yes, please. And a couple of days later, they called round to my house. And I opened the door, and there was this beautiful lady standing there. I went, "Oh, hello, I'm called Marilyn now." And this was back in the 90s. I said, "Oh, come in." And they sat down, and it was still the person I knew back in the 70s. But now they were Marilyn. And they explained in order to live their life to the full, they needed to trans into a woman. And I listened, and I was privileged over the next 3 years to share their journey. Now you could argue for or against, but we're talking about grassroots, an ordinary person wanting to live their life without fear or favour, without campaigning, without protesting. And things were certainly different in the 90s. Indeed, when it comes to operations, things were certainly different. And here was a middle-aged person who'd reached the conclusion they wanted to live their life to the full. And I really did feel privileged and somewhat honoured to share that journey with Marilyn. And it came to the time when they were about to go for their operation, having lived as a woman for those years. We hugged, we wished them all the best, and I prayed for them. But following the operation, their partner rang me and said, "Marilyn died during the operation. They had a stroke." It sent a shiver down me, and it sent a feeling that I've never forgotten. Someone at the grassroots who just wanted to live their life. Is that so wrong? But when we campaign, when we take sides, when we scream at each other and say this is wrong and that is wrong, are we forgetting the grassroots? This is why freedom of expression is so important, so we can talk to each other, so we can understand each other. And I've never forgot Marilyn. I've never forgotten Keith and that journey, which brings us to the questions to end this video when we're talking about freedom of expression. What do you think? Can equity find better ways to protect the interests of their marginalised workers so they have dignity and safety at work? Can equity more transparently show it is representing the views of all its members equally and fairly? And is it not better to put negotiation, listening to others and responding first before starting to loudly campaign? We'll leave these thoughts with you, and thank you for bringing to our attention what you believe and feel about this issue. Please get in touch via our usual email address and let us know what you think. And as always, you're very welcome to join us again. And as we always say in showbiz, keep your fingers crossed, be lucky.